What is one of the first things you think of when you think of an Australian?
Kangaroos.
Good eye, Mike.
Kangaroos, accent, right? They say things just a little differently than we do. This is one of their cities on their northern shore. And we would say this as, we would pronounce it as Cairns. But Australians say something a little different. Their R is what I like to call silent, when they choose it to be silent. And so they would say something that sounds a little more like this. G'day, mate. You going up to Cairns today? Okay, that's more like how an Australian would say it. And one afternoon I was speaking with an Australian friend of mine, and I told him that I had been to Cairns. And for the next few minutes he was confused, trying to figure out who exactly Karen was. Sometimes our differences in accents can be amusing, but sometimes the way that we say things can make the difference between life and death. And today we're going to be looking at how the things we say and the way we say things can show where we belong. I obviously am American. My accent proves that. But we're going to be looking at how it can the way we say things can show where our spiritual citizenship is. So let's turn in our Bibles to Judges chapter 12. Judges chapter 12 and verses 5 and 6. And the context is that the Ephraimites are fighting against the Gileadites, and they're across a river from each other. They're camped across this river. And it says in verse 5, "And the Gileadites took the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites. And when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, 'Let me go over,' the men of Gilead said to them, 'Are you an Ephraimite?' When he said, 'No,' they said to him, 'Then say Shibboleth.' But he would say Sibboleth, for he could not pronounce it right. Then they seized him and slew him at the fords of the Jordan. And there fell at that time 42,000 of the Ephraimites." So in their situation, the way they pronounced one word made the difference between whether they could live or die. And it showed that they were in fact members of the tribe of Ephraim and not from the Gileadites. In the same way, what we say and how we say it can show where our spiritual citizenship is, which country we belong to, whether the heavenly country or the country of this world. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 12. Matthew chapter 12 and verses 34 and 35. And Jesus is speaking here. He says, "You brood of vipers, how can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good man, out of the good treasure of his heart, brings forth good things. But the evil man, out of his evil treasure, brings forth evil." So Jesus makes it clear that whatever is in our hearts, that is what will come out of our mouths. So if our hearts are full of God, if we're contemplating heavenly things, then our speech is going to reflect that. It's going to reflect Christ. But if our hearts are full of things of this world, then our speech is going to reflect the things of this world. So as we've seen, our words can say a lot about who we are. Just as my pronunciation of Cairns showed that I really am American. And just as the Ephraimites' pronunciation of Shibboleth or Sibboleth showed which tribe they belonged to, in the same way, the things that we say show who has our heart. Which country do we belong to spiritually? Are our words kind and considerate? Or are they critical and condescending? Is our voice full of compassion and sympathy for others? Or do we speak in a flippant and careless way, maybe even sometimes sarcastically, at the expense of others? When the Lord transforms our hearts, He will enable us to speak with the accent of grace, the accent of the heavenly kingdom. He will transform the way we live from the inside out. So the answer is not, okay, I need to watch what I say. The answer is, I need a change of heart. And only God can give us that change. So what does your speech say about your citizenship? Do you belong to the heavenly country or the country of this world?